Welcome back, everybody. How was the first session? Hope you guys had a good time. All right, so I'm excited for this next part. So we're gonna be digging deep into the actual perfect webinar. Now, I almost hate that I called it the perfect webinar, but I was in webinar mode when we did it because it's weird, especially since we're talking about stage selling as well. But it's the same thing. The concept's the same. Selling from stage and selling from webinars is very, very similar. The different nuances are when you're on stage, there's ways that I anchor the stage, there's ways where I push people around on the stage, there's ways you do stuff, and I'll show that during the presentation. But for the most part, my presentation is almost the same. Again, a few little things we do that are different live that I don't do on a webinar, but for the most part, it's almost the same. So this is the perfect webinar script. Now, I talk about the perfect webinar in the .com Secrets book. That's the first time I first kind of shared it. In fact, the real story behind it is, again, probably 12 years of my life doing a really bad stage pitch, teleseminars, like we talked about, then webinars, and then live events and everything. And as I was doing the .com Secrets book, this is the first time I started doodling out all these ideas, trying to put them in a format. And about the time was when we launched my Inner Circle program, and Liz Benny came in. And at the time, like, everyone was trying to do free plus shipping offers, stuff like that. And I was talking to Liz Benny, and she was like, "Hey, what should I do?" And I was like, "You need to do a webinar." And I don't know why, but I felt like with her personality and her energy, I was like, "You just like this is the right vehicle for what you need to do. Like, you need to do a webinar." And I'd never really taught webinars before. She's like, "Okay, well, cool. I'm gonna do it. What do I need to do?" And I was like, "Let me get back to you." And so I spent the next 3 days, I don't know if she even knows this story, but I started going back through all my old webinars and all my notes and all my stuff and just everything I've ever had. And I started looking at the patterns of what did I do consistently over and over and over again. And I started doodling it all out. And I spent a couple days doing this. And finally, I came out and I doodled out this little doodle that was the original perfect webinar. Some of you guys have seen it. In fact, it's in here somewhere. But anyway, I doodled that first picture out. And then and I told her, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to do a training tomorrow on Perfect Webinar. You should be on it." And so for all my little mastermind group at the time of probably 15 people or so, I did this training. It was an hour-long training. I just took the doodle and I walked through this is what we did and how we did it. And I kind of walked through the whole thing, and then people were like, "Oh." And for the last 3 years, I've given that away for free. Free plus shipping was the DVD of that original presentation with the script, and we sold tens of thousands of them. But from that, it's insane how many people have actually launched perfect webinars from that. Dan Henry read the .com Secrets book, which had basically that doodle, and that's it. And he launched a webinar, went from zero to $1 million in I think 4 or 5 months. He was at the time the fastest person from start to the 2 Comma Club. But since then, we've got tons more. And I could tell you hundreds of success stories of the perfect webinar. When we did the Expert Secrets book, one of the big reasons why I wanted to do this is I wanted to go deeper on the webinar because it's the key to all sorts of mass selling. Even if you're not using a webinar, again, that's why I wish I wouldn't call it the perfect webinar, because it's also the perfect pitch for a video sales letter. It's a perfect pitch for an email sequence. It's a perfect pitch for a product launch sequences. It's any kind of mass selling, it's this framework is for all types of mass selling. So even if you're like, "Russell, I will never do a webinar ever," it doesn't matter. If you're like, "I'm never gonna speak from stage ever," it doesn't matter. If you're trying to sell to the masses, meaning sending emails, videos, anything, this concept is the same. And I've seen people use it now in almost every market that I can dream of. I've seen people use it to sell chiropractic care. I've seen people use it to sell soap and lotions. I've seen people use it to sell supplements. I've seen people use it to sell pretty much everything. And so that's what I want to kind of preface, so no one discounts this. Don't be like, "Oh, this isn't worth my business," because I will strangle you. I will literally come to where you're at and I will strangle you. And then I will show you me doing the perfect webinar and 10x in your company overnight. It just works. I promise you that. And it works off the psychology of you're selling to the masses, where I don't have the ability to ask to one-on-one, tell everybody everything. I got to do it at kind of a mass scale. Okay. Now, a couple of things kind of lead up before I kind of go into this. One of the biggest things that I learned, I told about this in the last session, when I first started doing my first time speaking from stage, and the problem that a lot of us are going to have, especially a lot of you guys, the salespeople won't have as big of a problem with this, but a lot of the educators who are selling information products and things, you're going to struggle with this because you're in this emotional dilemma where you think that the way you serve the audience the best is to teach them the step-by-step process of how to do what it is you do. Okay, and that was my first big mistake. My first thing, I went up there, I stood up on stage, and I showed them, "Here's how you do what I do." And I showed them step 1, step 2, step 3, and I got into technical detail. I basically did a whole training course and then tried to slap a pitch at the end. And nothing, crickets, okay? And I don't know about you guys, but I know that like, no matter how much I try to serve you in like a step-by-step process, in a 60-minute presentation, I'm not gonna be able to give you all the tools you need. It's just impossible, right? And so you're not actually doing them a service. You're giving them a piece of the step-by-step, and then you withhold everything else from them because you think you're actually serving them at the highest level. And the reality is you're not. The biggest thing you can do, and this is, if I can get nothing else through your mind besides this, the biggest thing you can do to serve somebody is not to teach them the step-by-step. Okay, there's tons of people that understand the step-by-step on how to do something. You can go to YouTube, you can find the step-by-step, right? The biggest thing you can do during your time with them on stage or on a webinar is to figure out what is keeping them back. Okay, we talked before, we had this big thing with the result up here, right? What is keeping them from getting that result that they want? Okay, they have these internal false beliefs that are keeping them from success. That's it. That's what you have to understand. And so your job as an educator, as somebody who's trying to serve them, is to figure out what those false beliefs are. And we're going to destroy those false beliefs so that they're gone, so they can actually move forward. What you'll find when you do this is that people actually, you'll see the people actually using and following through on what it is you sell them will dramatically increase by doing this. But you do that and then you make them a special offer of how they can actually now learn the process or buy the product or whatever it is, okay? And so that's the big thing I want to stress is you're not teaching, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. You are breaking false beliefs. And you do that through story, okay? Now, it's funny because I have some people like, in fact, I had some the other day told me like, I did a perfect webinar and people kept telling me like, when are you gonna get to the teaching? And if you do this wrong, you'll hear people say that. If you do it right, I don't think I've ever had someone come to one of my webinars or my stage presentations who didn't feel like they learned a ton, right? I'm teaching them the what they need to do. I tell them stories to break the false belief patterns around the what, and then the product is the how you do it, okay? If you do this right, what's interesting is that you'll get more people afterwards coming to you like in tears, like you changed my life. You broke my belief pattern. Like now I see the future. The future's clear, it's bright, I know exactly where I'm going. And they have the vehicle they need to actually do it, right? And so I want to just stress that as like, you're not going to be teaching step by step, but this style of teaching, which is going to be different for most of you guys, will serve them better, it'll do more, and it's going to feel weird for you at first, okay? Most people who have a webinar who doesn't work and they come back, oh, it's not working, why not? And I'm like, I'm not even going to watch it, my guess is you're teaching too much. They're like, oh yeah, I'm teaching too much. Like, you have to get away from that teacher mode, and it's tough for all of us. We want to get like, I'm excited about it right now because I'm in teacher mode. I get to teach you guys all the step-by-steps. I love it. I would never do this on a webinar because then you would never buy and you'd miss out 90% of what I could offer you, okay? And so I want you to understand that. So it's all about story. So before we get into like, for every webinar, there's 4 core stories I'm going to tell. There's 4 core stories, stack and a close. Like that's it. That's how I do my presentation, okay? 4 stories, a stack and a close. And so we'll break down those pieces, how they all work, how they tie together. But that's what understand is that the bulk of all the content are stories. And so to begin with, you have to actually understand like, how do you actually tell a story? The better you become at telling stories, the better you'll become at selling products, okay? You heard the old cliche, like facts tell, stories sell. So true, okay? Stories are the key. Now, I printed out 2 of the handouts from the Expert Secrets book because it's gonna make my process a little easier here sharing this stuff with you. So if you have the Expert Secrets book, there's a section on the Epiphany Bridge. These are the actual scripts I'm gonna be walking us through today to begin with. Now first, I want to give you some backstory on this whole concept of the Epiphany Bridge script and where it came from. And right now I'm drinking, I don't know if you guys see this is blue water. This is actually Blue Shark from a product that I drink from a company called Prove It. And Prove It is a network marketing company I am a co-owner in, and I'm not doing this to pitch you on Prove It, but because there's a story that's tied into this. And so when the company first came out, I had worked with the owner, his name's Brian, and a really cool dude. I worked with him in another project that we put a lot of effort into it, did a lot of work, and some businesses don't work, right? And it failed, didn't make any money, lost a ton of money, lost 6 months of my life, and it was really tough. And then a couple of years later, he's like, hey, I got this new thing, want to be part of it? I'm like, no, there's no way I'll ever be part of it again. He's like, come on, man, it's gonna be amazing. I'm like, no, I'm out. And he kept trying to ask me, and then one day he's like, well, at least try the product. I'm like, sure, man, send me the product. So like a week later, I get a FedEx envelope in the mail, and I open the FedEx envelope, and I open it up, and there's 2 white baggies of white powder with magic markers written on it, Keto OS. And I'm like, what is this, like a drug or something? He mailed me to the mail. And I asked him, I'm like, what is this, man? And he's like, it's our new product, try it. I'm like, what's in it? He's like, just trust me, it's awesome. I'm like, I don't feel super comfortable taking white packages of white powder in the mail and just consuming them in my body. And so I set them by like on the side, and they were there for a couple weeks. And then one day, I was heading to church. I was actually late for church. I hadn't eaten the breakfast in the morning, and I am a Mormon, so I go to Mormon church. It was like 3 hours long, and there's meetings afterwards and before. And I'm like, I need to eat something. And I looked over, I saw his magic bag of white powder. I'm like, who cares? So I dumped in something, shook it up, drank it while I'm driving. First thing, I'm like, this tastes really, really good. And then I get there, and then all day long, I have insane amounts of energy and focus, and I wouldn't get tired. Usually I fall asleep in church at least 5 or 6 times. I was like alert the whole time. And I get home, and I was like, dude, whatever that was awesome. I want some more. And so then he starts like, doing this thing that most of you will do, and he did to me, and he started spewing out all the technical stuff about why this thing was so amazing. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It tasted like candy. I feel really good. I want some more of it. And so then he's like, well, maybe you can be on the board. I'm like, I don't want to be on the board. And he's like, well, if you're on the board, maybe you can look at my sales script I'm writing and see it. And I'm like, so finally he sends me the sales script. I'm laying in bed one night, and it's this huge, long sales letter he wrote, and it's all jammed full of all the technical, the science behind how it works, and all these things. I'm reading it, and I was like, he's gonna bug me every day unless I just do this. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. So I like deleted his sales letter, and I sat down, and I started thinking, because the product, what it does is it puts your body in ketosis. And I knew about ketosis. I had a friend who had explained to me one time, and I was trying to think, I was like, what is the reason, what's the story that I know about ketosis? Like, why do I care about that? I'm thinking about this. I remember like a year and a half earlier, I was at a marketing event, and one of my friends, his name's Aaron Lilly, I hadn't seen him in a while, and he comes in, and he's like, he looks really good. And I was like, okay. And then we go to dinner that night, and I remember he ordered chicken with a side of butter, and he's eating dinner, and he's like got a chicken thing, and he's dipping it in butter and eating it. And I was like, I just like totally started making fun of him, because that's what I do, and kind of making fun of him about it. And he's like, no man, he's like, this is the secret. Like, you put your body in ketosis, and it burns all these fats and all of that. And I'm just like, whatever, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, explain it to me. So he tries to explain it 2 or 3 times, and finally he's like, okay, have you ever built a fire before? I'm like, obviously yes. He's like, okay, so he's like, when you build a fire, you know, if you have a fire it's going, you get like little logs, and you throw it on, what happens? I'm like, they go up and then they go down. He's like, yeah, that's kind of like carbs. Like when you eat Cheerios in the morning, this happens. You get like a little burst of energy, and then you're like dead the rest of the day. That's what happens in a fire. He's like, but if you have a fire and then you put logs on it, what happens? I'm like, logs burn longer. He's like, yeah, that's awesome. He's like, logs are kind of like protein, and so it's like when you eat protein, like it burns longer and the energy's there. He's like, what happens if you take coals and put them in the fire? And I'm like, well, that's really good. It burns like all night long. He's like, yeah, that's the key. Like coals are like fat. And he's like, so what happens if you just took fat though? If you took coals and like try to light a match, it doesn't work, right? You have to train your body to get into a state where it can actually burn the coals. He's like, but when it does, they burn all night long, and it's a better source of energy. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I've trained my fat. He's like, I no longer do carbs or proteins. For the most part, I just eat fats now. And because I got my body trained in a way where the fats are burning, I have more energy, more focus, I'm not tired, like all these things. I was like, okay, cool. It made sense to me, right? So I'm sitting there in bed that night, and I'm trying to think, how do I explain this concept of ketosis? It's so confusing. And I was like, I'm going to use that campfire story. And so I sat down and wrote this little script about, have you ever built a campfire before? And I talk about kindling, logs, and protein. It's kind of like losing weight. And I tell this whole story, and I write the script out, sent to Brian in the morning. He's like, dude, this is really good. I'm like, well, because it's a story that makes sense, that bridges this gap where people can understand it. And anyway, he ends up giving me equity for the company in exchange for making this video, and we get it produced. And it's this little video that all the distributors have on their phone. And they meet someone now. They go with the person, they push play, they say, watch this video. The person watches the video, and they're like, oh, that's what ketosis is, and they sell them the product. So story bridges the gap, and then they sell the product. And that company went from 0 to, I think this year they're doing like $400 or $500 million, like in 2 or 3 years. Really, really fast growing company. It was all based on a really simple story. Okay, so I'm kind of part of this Prove It thing. I'm not an active distributor or anything like that. I'm just excited by it. I love the product, and I love the community. And so Brian asked me to speak at one of the events. So I fly out to the event, and I get there, I got my bags, and I'm sitting in the lobby, and I'm looking around, and what I see is like so stereotypical. Anyway, it made me laugh. But I see all these guys who are in these t-shirts, and the t-shirts say like, ketones are greater than glucose. And I see these guys running around, they're grabbing people, and you see the people walking through the hotel lobby, and like they see these people coming to them, and like they're like running away from them. And it was totally that to a T. It was so funny. And I'm watching people that's pouncing on all the people trying to pitch them, and I listen to their presentations, and they're talking about like, is your body still burning glucose? No wonder you're so tired and you look fat, and blah, 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 and all these things. And I'm just like, I can't believe this is how they've been taught to present to people. And so I get there to the hotel, and Brian said there's this meeting with the top 100 distributors in the company. Why don't you come talk to them? And it was funny because I was sitting there, and then I'm like, when's the meeting at? And he's like, oh crap, it started 5 minutes ago. We got to go. And I'm like, what? So I still have my backpack on. He's like, where to go? So we're like, run out of the hotel room and go downstairs. I'm like, what do you want to talk about? He's like, whatever you feel like they need. And we walk in the room, there's all these people there. He walks to the front and like introduces me. I'm hitting my backpack like, oh man, I'm on. So I take my backpack off, and he like says my name. People are clapping. I'm walking down. I'm like, what in the world am I going to talk about? So I get to the front, I turn around, I look out, I see all these people here, right? I see them all, and they're so excited, so passionate. They all got on spandex and the t-shirts and like everything. They all got their water bottle and they're drinking it. You know, tons of energy, everything. I'm just like, oh man, these guys are pumped. And I'm looking at them like, how can I serve these guys? How can I, like, what do I need to explain to them? And then it hit me. I was like, I know exactly what I need to explain to these people. And so I got out the whiteboard and I drew this picture. I said, okay, this is what I've been noticing since I've been here earlier today. I said, here is a human being. A normal human being. How many of you guys remember being a normal human being? Now kind of laugh. It's okay. All of you guys were a normal human being, right? And then you were going on your merry way, things were happening, all of a sudden something happened to you, right? Somebody introduced you to this product that you're passionate about, right? And something happened. Do you guys remember what it was? I think about like, what was the thing that happened? And I'm like, every one of you guys had an experience. That's why you're here. That's why you're like here. Something happened. You had an experience. Okay, and then during that experience, you went on this journey where you tried the product. Like for me, right? I tried the product. It tasted like candy. Tastes like candy, gave me energy. I was like, this is amazing. And so I went on this journey with them, right? Something happened, you went on this journey. And then over here, what happened is because you had this emotional great experience, you came over here and you started geeking out, right? So I'm gonna put glasses on here. This represents the geek out zone, right? So you started geeking out, you started learning everything about it. You started learning technology, like learn about beta hydroxybutyrate salts, learn about ketosis and glucose and all these facts, right? This is all your logic, okay? And then what happens then is then you get so excited, you want to share, you want to change the world, you want to change everybody's life, you're so excited. So you take this concept and all of a sudden you see this cute little prospect over here coming down who's just a normal person like you used to be. And you see them, you're like, okay, I've got one shot, I got to change this person's life, I need to explain to them exactly why they need this. And so you come over here and you pounce on them. The first thing you do is you take all of this technical mumbo jumbo, we call it technobabble. And the first thing you do, because you know you got a short window, you take this and you jam it down their throat. Like, do you understand that you're burning sugar instead of fats and like beta hydroxybutyrate salts and this and ketosis and blah blah, and all of a sudden you're jamming all this stuff down their on them as quick as you can because you got one shot at getting him, and this person gets scared to death and then they run away. Okay, and that was I'm like I saw this in the hallway. Over and over and over again today. This is what you guys are doing because you're so geeked out, you're so in love with it. But how many of you guys got started in this company today because you were excited about beta hydroxybutyrate salts? And one guy in the back raised his hand. I'm like, are you a scientist? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, you're the only guy. Nobody else was that the reason, right? I said, for everybody else, there's some experience, something happened that got you excited where you actually geeked out and cared about this, but you did not get sold because of this. Something happened to you. What was your story? I just want to know your guys' story. And I was sitting there and someone raises their hand. I'm like, what was your story? And like, well, this happened to me. Like I was struggling with my weight and I tried everything in the past. I've tried carbs. I tried this diet. And my friends gave it to me. I tried it. It actually tasted good. It curbed my appetite and I lost, X amount of pounds and I got super excited and that's why I did it. I said, then what happened? And it's like, then I started trying to figure out why and I studied and geeked out. I'm like, how many people have you signed up? He's like, not that many. I was like, the problem is because you're jamming down this. Tell them the story. The story is the key. And if you do this correctly, if you tell them the story the right way, what will happen is that people will go on this story with you, this journey with you, and we call it the epiphany bridge because what was it that gave you the epiphany of your thing, right? What was that epiphany? You tell people about your epiphany. If you do it right, they will have the same epiphany you had. And they'll geek out and figure out the logic on their own. Okay, you don't have to worry about that. But if you want them to buy, if you want them to move, if you want to like create movement in somebody's life, you have to give them the same epiphany you had. Okay, and so this is the big secret. This is the key, you guys. And so for all you guys, I want you to think about whatever it is you're selling. Okay, some of you are selling products, services, cars, services. Like everyone's got something different, right? What was it that got you excited about this thing? Okay, I keep using car example because I know there's a lot of car people from the 10X event, but if it was me, I'd be thinking back like, when was the first time I fell in love with cars? Like how old was I? With my dad, with my grandpa, with my mom? Like what did it smell like? What did it feel like? What was the thing that I was just like, I want to be part of this. Like, I love this. I love the thing. What was that story? Okay, and that would be the story I'd be telling to get people to come on this journey with you. Not about this thing gets, like all the car commercials are so annoying to me. They always drop all this technobabble. I was like, I'm an affluent buyer. I make a lot of money. I can buy a lot of cars, and I don't understand a word they're saying on any car commercial because they spout out technobabble. It's hilarious. It's like if they came back and told me like, this is why I created this car because of this, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I want that car, right? It's the story that brings people in. And so for you guys, I want to think back at the time when you were a normal everyday person. When was that for you? Okay, when you were a normal person. Now think about the thing that you were selling that you're geeked out about. What was that experience that you went through that gave you the epiphany that made you come over here? This is the key that unlocks everything, is understanding that, okay? Understanding the story. So when I tell someone about funnels, the last thing I do, the thing I never do, is talk about conversion rates and upsells and downsells and all that kind of crap, right? I talk about my potato gun story. That's when I had my epiphany of like, oh my gosh, a funnel is the secret. That's the difference, right? When I tell my, anyway, and you'll see when we go through the thing, like I'm just telling stories the whole time, epiphany bridge story after epiphany bridge story. There's 4 core stories to talk about, and there's a lot of little sub ones weaved in as well that I'll show you guys. But it's all these stories. This is the key to everything. And so it's you learning how to tell stories in a way that gets rid of this technobabble, okay? One of the things I talk about expert secrets is like every time you come to a word that's like, has even a little bit of technobabble, you have to stop and like, it's kind of like this. We call them kind of like bridges, right? Like in the campfire video that people use and prove it, I'm like, I talk about how they're gonna get in ketosis and they're gonna have ketones going through their blood. If you hear me say ketones going through your blood, what are you thinking? I'm thinking like keys and ringtones, and like that doesn't make any sense. So as soon as I say ketones, I stop and said, it's kind of like having a million little motivational speakers running through your body, giving you tons of energy. And they're like, oh, cool, that's what it's kind of like. So you kind of, anytime I'm telling any story, I hit any kind of like even mild technobabble whatsoever, I stop and say, well, it's kind of like this. Okay, I don't know how long we've been going, an hour, 2 hours, however long. I've told you guys probably 20, 30 stories since we started this morning, right? Every time I hit a thing that's kind of confusing, I try to stop and say, it's kind of like this, and I try to like relate it to something you already understand. So I'm using these things. The next thing that's really, really important, and I'm not just telling somebody about my epiphany. Okay, if I tell them the epiphany, like, oh, cool, that makes sense, right? How many of you guys have ever, you have something cool happen to you and you want to tell somebody the experience, right? And you tell them the story, like, hey, this is what happened, and you tell them the whole thing, they're like, oh, cool. And you're like, no, you don't understand. And then you like retell it a different way, and they're like, no, I got it. I heard you said the first time. And you're like, if you just would have been there, then you would have experienced it, right? How many of you guys have ever done that before, had somebody do that, right? The key is you have to get them to experience it. Okay? When I tell you my stories, think about earlier today, I told you guys the story about the first time I spoke on stage. I didn't just say, I spoke on stage and I bombed, right? I tried to take you into that experience so you could feel the pain of it, right? I was standing on stage, normally get done speaking, like someone turns the music on, but I got done, nobody turned the music on. And I was standing there and I felt like, I was just so embarrassed. And so like, I kind of like awkwardly turned off and I walked off the side, and then I went to the back and the speakers were there, and like, man, they're asking me how I did, and I didn't sell any. It was so embarrassing. And so I snuck away and I faked like I had to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, I actually went to the hotel room, and I locked myself in the room, and I was so embarrassed. I just watched movies all day long, and I ordered Haagen-Dazs ice cream and ate coconut shrimp, and that's how depressed I was. I didn't want to leave the room. I was so embarrassed. How many of you guys felt like that emotion, right? Like you were there, you felt you were on stage with me when I bombed, you saw the audience, you saw the other speakers kind of teasing me, you laid in bed with me eating coconut ice cream, and coconut shrimp and Haagen-Dazs ice cream, too embarrassed to go back down. As I told that, if I did it right, you guys lived it with me. You experienced it, you felt it, right? So I'm telling stories, I'm not just like, and that's when I realized I needed to learn how to sell from stage. No, like they're not gonna have the epiphany. They're just gonna, it's gonna like, oh no, I get it, that makes sense. But if I tell it in the right way where they go through the emotional experience with you, then they have the epiphany with you, and then it changes everything. Okay, so as I show you guys this presentation, notice how I do that. Like when I'm telling stories, I'm talking about how I feel. And this is hard for some of the non-feeling people. We've been doing a lot of personality profile testing here in our office lately, and I'm someone who, I'm less of a thinker, more of a feeler. So for me, it's easier, it comes more natural to like, I felt like this and I felt this. A lot of you guys who are more like thinkers, it's gonna be more difficult for you. So you have to start thinking back, like, how did I feel? And it's gonna be hard for some of you guys, but you talk about that. Because as soon as I tell somebody how I feel, if they're listening, they're gonna feel it as well. Human beings have this really cool thing called empathy. So I can be in a room with 9,000 people, explain how I'm feeling, and everyone in that room can feel similar feelings. Okay, that's the power of this mass selling. So when I know that, you understand the pattern, you can amplify it. So I'm gonna tell a story, but before I give the big aha, the thing that they need, I need them to feel it. Sorry, I hit my microphone. I need them to feel it the same way I felt it. Because if they're in the same experience and they're in the same state that I was in, then they're gonna have the same experience that I had. Okay? I don't know how many of you guys study Tony Robbins stuff. Tony talks a lot about state control, right? And so a lot of times what he's talking about is state control for yourself. If I was in the room, I ask, how many of you guys have ever been to a Tony Robbins event? How many of you guys have been to a Tony Robbins event, okay? If you go to UPW, the one you walk on fire, like he teaches a lot of cool stuff at the event, but one of the main things he talks about is how to get into state, right? People always ask me, Russell, how do you always seem so happy? I'm like, because before I pick up a phone to do a Facebook Live, I get into state. When I get home with kids, like I'm driving home, I'm tired, I'm worn out, I'm relaxed. And as soon as I get in the door, I get into state, so that when I'm there, I'm present for my kids. When I start this presentation, like I'm tired. Some of you guys know I spent 18 hours yesterday reading. I got to midnight, passed out. Like, I'm tired right now. But I show up here, I'm in state, right? You can control your state. And if you look at how Tony teaches state control, there's only a couple things you got to do. Here's a little triad thing here. Number one, And the most important one is physiology. You change your physiology, right? So if I'm tired, if I'm like this, like it's a really weird thing about depressed people. They stand really depressed. Like it's really hard to be depressed when you're standing like this, okay? It's just hard, try it. Next time you're depressed, like look at your physiology, you're gonna be like this, yeah. Okay? If you shift physiology, it changes things fast. Okay, physiology is the fastest way to change our state. So like, how do I shift my physiology? It's getting energy, it's music, it's caffeine, gives me physiology. There's different things I can do to change my physiology, to change my state. Okay, physiology is the simplest to change. So that's number one, is if I'm telling someone their story, I need to change their physiology. So if I understand that, what am I gonna say to change the physiology? The only way for them to have, like, we know that people have rapport and empathy. If I built rapport correctly, which I'm gonna talk about how I build rapport during the presentation, if I built rapport correctly, and then I start talking about how I feel, they're gonna have empathy with me and they're gonna feel the same way that I feel. Okay? So physiology, understand if I need to get someone in the right state to have the same epiphany I had, I'm gonna control their physiology. And I do that by telling the story and talking about my physiology. If I do that, they're gonna match me, okay? So physiology, and there's two other things, but I'm not gonna talk about those because there's focus, there's meaning, there's language, stuff like that. But the biggest thing is like physiology is the number one thing that controls state. So that's for yourself, but it's also true for your audience. I need to control their state, okay? All right, so that's kind of the epiphany bridge. So that's setting up, so it's important to understand that this is the key, is story, right? And so how do I tell a story in a way that gets people in the right state, gets their physiology in a way that I need it, and gives them this epiphany, okay? And so for me, I went on like a, 7 or 8 year journey trying to figure this piece out. The Expert Seekers book, I take you down that whole journey. I'm not going to take you on the whole journey, but I worked with Michael Haig, who's one of the top Hollywood screenwriters and coaches in the world. He works with people like Will Smith, writing the screenplays for movies and stuff like that. And I studied with him. We had him speak at some of our events, tried to understand story from a process standpoint. If you look at almost every successful movie play in the history of all time, they all follow the same pattern. It's called the hero's two journeys. And I talk about a diagram and break down the book. And so when you understand that, like we know story structure, we know what it needs to look like, we know what human beings respond to based on, however many thousands of years human beings have been on this planet. We know what works. So we have to understand, like, how do I put my story into the hero's two journey, into that process? And for me, it was hard. It took me a while, and finally I was able to break it down into a script we call the Epiphany Bridge script, which we have right here. I'm gonna walk you guys through it, because the Epiphany Bridge script is what is the way that I tell my stories to try to get the epiphany that we need, okay? So I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna erase this right now. And I'm gonna go through these two doodles with you guys. But if you wanna see these closer, once again, they're in the Expert Secrets book. So here you go, I'm gonna kind of go through these. So this is the Epiphany Bridge script, and you're gonna notice me, when you watch the actual presentation, you'll notice me doing this over and over and over again. Some of these, like the nice thing about Epiphany Bridge script is I can tell a story and I can do this in a 2 or 3 hour long session like a movie, or I can do an Epiphany Bridge script in like 2 minutes. Okay, and you notice me doing different variations of it as I go through here. Some I leave out a lot of details, some I put more details in. A lot of it depends on time. That's what's nice, is if I'm speaking at an event, I'm like, I've got 90 minutes, I know about how long my stories need to go. If I've got 30 minutes, I can tell the same stories if I pull all the details out, and I can still get the same job done, right? Okay, so here's the Epiphany Bridge script. These are the questions that kind of go along with it. And so these are questions, if you're like, how do I do this? Just grab these questions and ask these questions, and you answer them. It'll help you like understand how to take someone through the process, okay? All right, so the very beginning. Every good story starts with a backstory, because the biggest thing is you have to build rapport with your audience, or they're not going to care about you and they're not going to listen to you, right? Like rapport is huge, and I'm going to show you guys when we do the presentation all the stuff I do to try to get rapport quickly with an audience, okay? If you have rapport, again, then it's easier to affect their physiology and get them in the right state and all those kind of things. So trying to always things to get rapport quickly. And so to get rapport people is I have to get them to like me, right? And so part of that is like, and again, I talked about this in the last session, like, what most people do to try to get people to like them is they like to brag about themselves. Like, I was on CNN and Fox, and my best friend is President Trump, and I go golfing every day with this guy, and they always brag about this stuff. And I watch presenters do this, and I'm just like, they're posturing, trying to build rapport, and all they're doing by posturing is they're pushing people away. Okay? If you look at my postures are like very short, like glimpses of like, oh, I did this by the way, and I shift back, right? I don't spend time there because I want people to understand why they should listen to me, but I don't want to stay there because it causes distance. It doesn't bring people together, right? So what brings people together is the backstory. So I might say like, hey guys, I'm excited to be here today. I'm gonna walk you guys through, I made $3 million in 90 minutes. But to begin with, like, I'm gonna tell you the story, and I'm gonna go to my story of me eating coconut shrimp because I failed, right? Because that's what builds rapport. That's why people care about me, because it's like, oh man, he was just like me, right? So we start on the backstory. If you look at any movie, all good movies start with the backstory, okay? And then the goal of the backstory is to build rapport with the hero who's going on this journey, right? We go to the Shire in Lord of the Rings because we have to build a relationship with the Hobbit, right? With Frodo. You go to Lightning McQueen starts the show, starts Cars like on the raceway in this initial race because it builds rapport and you start building a relationship with the audience, okay? Now in the backstory, and if you look at, it's funny, all Hollywood screenplays, it's like the backstory happens from like page to this page to this page, and this page is when the hero always leaves the spot, right? It's crazy how like every movie follows the same thing. Every movie you watch, look, and you'll start seeing this pattern. So I start a story in the backstory. And in the backstory, I want to do a couple things. I want to talk to people about my desires, okay? I'm talking about two types of desires, the external desire and then my internal desire. Now, most people who tell stories are willing to share their external desire. Like, I want to make $1 million. I wanted to lose weight, okay? If you want to be a great storyteller, you have to become vulnerable. And this is tough for most of us. It's tough for me. It's still tough for me. But this is what gets people to build rapport with you. Okay, if you say I want to make $1 million, they don't really care. It's like, oh, cool. But I need to talk about it because that's the journey we're going on is to do this, and it's usually their same goal. But if you come back and now you share your internal desires, but the reason why I really want to make $1 million, not so much that I care about $1 million, but you know, as I was growing up, my dad, blah, 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 and I wanted his respect. You know, whenever you tell like the real story, like, why do you actually want $1 million? And then why? And you keep asking the question, why? I'm like, this is the real reason why I wanted to do it. Okay, if you're willing to get vulnerable and explain the internal reasons why you did something, what's happening with most people is most people are willing to talk about their external desires. So when you're talking about the people listening in the audience, like, oh yeah, I want that too. But as soon as you open up, you start telling your internal desires, like, man, I just wanted the respect of my wife or my kids, or I wanted to feel good. Like I just wanted that feeling when I come out that I like, and you share that. What happens is that's the real reason why they want the thing too. No one cares about making $1 million. Nobody does. Why do they do it? They want a feeling. Tony Robbins at the last Fun Hacking Live event said that all this we do stuff because we want a feeling, right? The reason why someone smokes a cigarette, they want a feeling. The reason why people fall in love is because they want a feeling. The reason why people read a book is they want a feeling. The reason why you're here today is because you're hoping to get a feeling. Like all of our life's based on feelings, and so when we're willing to share our real feelings, other people will be like, "That's my feeling too. Oh my gosh, this person understands me. I'm just like them." So when you're willing to open up the internal, that's when you build connection. Okay. Now, if you leave the backstory before you have connection, you're gonna be in trouble. That's what happens if you ever watch a movie and the end of it people died and you're like, it's because they didn't spend enough time in the backstory. I was watching, I can't remember what movie it was, the Dennis Quaid movie with the volcanoes and everything. And I remember the backstory happened, they left, and I didn't have any rapport with the hero. And I remember at the end he died, and I was just like, man, I wish he would have died a long time ago. That was really boring, you know? But if you have connection with the character in the backstory, then you care about this journey, okay? So the backstory happens, I tell the backstory, I talk about my thing I was trying to do, but I share my internal desires, what I really was looking for, and then I was in some vehicle, I was trying to get that thing through this thing, right? Notice vehicle we talked about last session, like they're in the vehicle as well trying to get a result. You were in a vehicle that didn't work. What was the vehicle you were in to try to get the result you're trying to share with them right now? There's something you were trying, because most of you guys wasn't the first shot that all of a sudden like, I decided I want to sell stuff online and then I made a funnel and made $1 million. It's like, no, I tried eBay, I tried Shopify, I tried Craigslist, I tried like, what were the vehicle or vehicles you tried that you failed at? Okay, because this is this wall you hit in this journey. Because of that, you had to leave. You couldn't stay in the Shire. You had to leave the Shire to go to Mordor to destroy this ring. You had to leave the Piston Cup race to go to California to go race to have the actual victory to actually win, right? You had to leave the physical location. All heroes, after the first like 20% of the first script, they leave their hometown. They leave wherever the rapport is built with the audience, right? And they leave. So for you got stuck. All these vehicles you were trying to get the result, and then you had to leave. And you hit this wall, and it started you on this journey. And so this journey, you start going on this process, and somewhere in this process, this is where you have this epiphany, or an idea, or you met somebody. Some people that break down the hero's journey talk about there's always like a mentor. You met a mentor, you had an idea, whatever it is. But something happened where all of a sudden you had this idea. It was like, oh my gosh, I need to get my body in ketosis. Oh my gosh, like a funnel's the thing. Oh my gosh, it's whatever your big aha moment was, right? And so you share that, here's the epiphany I had, and that epiphany opens up, boom, this new opportunity. I think this is the way I need to go. This is the thing that I need to do. And so then you go and you make this plan. Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go on this journey. And you start going down this path. Now, the biggest thing about story to understand is that story without conflict, nobody cares about. It's the conflict in a story. It's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's the contrast that makes things interesting, right? If you're a designer, if you're a copywriter, for anything, like the contrast is what makes things interesting. I was fat and I wanted to get skinny. I was happy and I was sad. And the better the contrast, the better the emotion of the story is. And so during this plan of me, like, here's my epiphany. I think this is the thing. And you start going on this journey. Most of us will want to talk about our success, like, and I figured it out, I'm amazing. No, like, tell the conflict, tell the struggles. That's what makes you real, makes the story interesting. That's why people actually care about you. If you don't have the conflict, nobody cares. Okay, Natalie Hodson, she spoke at Funnel Hacking Live about vulnerability, and she shared something that was really, really powerful. She said, if Russell came to all of us and said that he made $3 million in 90 minutes, we'd all think he was this arrogant, annoying person, right? Like, I hate that guy. But she's like, because all of us have listened to his podcast and watched his videos and heard the ups and the downs, the company crashing, going bankrupt almost twice, and like all the stuff that because he shared all the failures, when he won, we all celebrated together. Okay, for Natalie, the same thing for her business. Like, because she shared the downs, when she had the success, everyone celebrated together. If you just share the success, nobody will celebrate with you, and you're going to lose them in the story. Okay, so be willing to be vulnerable and share the conflicts that happen during you trying to execute this plan of the epiphany. I tried this. Like, if I was trying to sell this, I wouldn't just talk about this ketosis thing. I wouldn't talk about like how I went off and I started doing it, and guess what? I kept drinking this stuff. It tastes really good, but I'm still fat a year later. Why? Because like it's hard. I couldn't give up this and like this, and the problems, the mental struggle, my family, like whatever. I tell the conflicts, and people are like, man, like I'm in that same boat. I understand that. And then when you do have the achievement, they all succeed together. Okay. Now the achievement over here, this is the fulfillment of your external desire. I want to make $1 million. I want to lose weight. I wanted the new car. I wanted the whatever, right? And some movies, people don't ever hit the achievement. That's okay. Lightning McQueen didn't win the Piston Cup on episode number 1. Rocky Balboa did not beat Apollo Creed at number 1. Like we don't always hit our achievement, okay? But the goal of the story is that the internal desires, the things that you're actually wanting, that's the journey of transformation. So the journey of achievement and the journey of transformation. And so you can talk about like, yeah, and then we made $3 million in 90 minutes. Like that's awesome, right? There's the journey of achievement. But the coolest thing is that when I got back home, finally, and then this isn't my story, like finally my wife realized that whatever, my husband or my dad, or finally I was able to like, blah, like what was the transformation that you went on that had success? The internal desire. And that's what makes these stories amazing, okay? So we start with the backstory, we talk about our external desires, we talk about our internal fears and all that kind of stuff that came up, all the vehicles we tried to get at spot, and then boom, we hit this wall, and it no longer was a should, it was a must. I decided I had to go on this journey, and I went to try to figure this out. I left my job, quit my job, I blah, 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 whatever happened, something like whatever that moment was for you, actually made the shift, and then the epiphany you had that created this new opportunity, the plan you went through it, the ups, the downs of the plan, and eventually the achievement, but then most importantly, the transformation. That is the story. Okay, this is magic. Like this, if you guys have nothing else to just tell a story like this and have a really good offer at the end, you'll make money. Okay, now the perfect webinar, I'm gonna walk through like the amplification of the model. But if I just need to sell something, I'm gonna tell someone a really good story and make them a really good offer. Okay, and those two pieces are enough to make most of you guys millionaires. Okay, now if you want to get big and 10x and all that kind of stuff, that's when you're gonna like dig deeper into the other kind of things. But that's really the key, guys. You tell someone a really good Epiphany Bridge story and then make them a special offer that gives them the opportunity to follow you with this new opportunity. That's enough to sell almost anything. Okay, I do that all the time through emails, through videos. If I have a shorter format, I'm gonna do an Epiphany Bridge script and an offer. That's it. In fact, I did a whole training yesterday: hook, story, and offer. Hook, story, offer. That's it. Like that's really it. Okay. That's as simple as it can be. Now we're going to complex it up a little bit because in a webinar or stage presentation, I've got 90 minutes, so I'm going to do a little more complex. And because of that, I can do a lot more things and increase my conversion rates. I'm going to walk you guys through that. Now, again, if you get stuck with this, like I had this printed out on my desk, it's sitting there. So I'm telling stories, I'm like referencing it, like, oh, and then I'm going to start my internals, and I'll talk about my internals, and then I was going through this journey, and I hit this wall, and that's when I had the epiphany. Now let me tell you about the conflicts I had. Like I was trying this and this, and like I use this all the time. So print this out, have it on your desk, and just sitting there when you're telling stories. You're doing Facebook Lives, you're doing a blog post, you're writing emails, like have it there. And then these are the questions. So if you get stuck, it's like, number one, what was your backstory? It gives us the vested interest in your journey. What was it you wanted to accomplish? What was your external struggle with dealing? What was your internal struggle? What was the wall or the problem you hit within your current opportunity that started you on this journey? What was the epiphany you experienced and the new opportunity that you discovered? What was the plan you created to achieve your desire? What conflict did you experience along the way? What was the end result that you achieved? How was the transformation that you experienced? Okay, boom. Master this. Use it over and over and over and over and over again. I've probably used at least 30 epiphany bridges on you since we got started today, at least, maybe more. Okay? Because I've mastered it. I do it subconsciously all the time. The other thing, I wasn't going to show this, but when you're getting success stories from your students, Don't be like, hey, can you send me a success story? Interview them. Ask them, hey, I have a question for you. Like, tell us where you came from. Like, what was the reason why you got started on this journey? And they'll tell you. And like, well, what were you trying to achieve? I know you're trying to make money, but like, what was the internal desire? What did you really want? And they'll tell you these things, and they can make amazing emotional testimonial videos like that. In fact, Kaylin Poland, she did a really cool thing. She told me, if you don't know Kaylin yet, she's awesome. She's younger. She's got tattoos and nose rings, stuff like that. She's like, I know that there's an audience that I appeal to. She's like, I also know there's an audience I don't. She's like, moms with a lot of kids a lot of times won't really relate to me. So she's like, so I went through and I found a bunch of moms in my Lady Boss community who are having success. And I said, I want to interview you live. Will you be willing? And they all said yes. And so she made like a woofu form and basically had them answer all these questions, right? And so the person had to sit down and spend an hour thinking through and like writing out all their questions to this Epiphany Bird script. And then she got these people on a Facebook Live. And she read it ahead of time, so she knew where she was going. She knew where the story was going. And then she interviewed him and said, hey, so a lot of people in the Lady Boss community, like, they look at me and they're like, this is cool for you, Kaylin, but I'm a mom, I've got kids. And so I want to bring you on, because you're a mom, you've got kids. Like, tell us the backstory. How did you get involved with Lady Boss? And then boom, the person tells the backstory. And then what's cool about that too, a lot of times people, if it's their first time on a Facebook Live, they get really nervous or awkward. So Kaylin knew the story ahead of time, so she'd be like, well, tell me about this part. Tell me about this part. She can like draw out the emotion of the story. So that's kind of a little hack, a little trick that's just super, super powerful. So this is the framework of a story, right? And man, I would tell for you guys, like, I would be practicing stories a lot. If you look at my day, I wake up in the morning, I see my kids, I try to tell them all a story every single morning, just practice my storytelling skills. After that, I jump in my car and I have my phone and I do a podcast where I usually tell a story. And at the office, and I usually tell the same stories to like 3 or 4 people in the office. So I've told this story 4 or 5 times, usually before I ever publish it live on a webinar or a thing like that, right? Because I'm practicing over and over and over again. You see what people respond to, what they don't respond to, what am I getting boring at, what's good, like what's hooking them, and I practice telling stories a lot. And so if anyone wonders, like, Russ, why are you so good at this? I'm like, well, I've been telling these stories for a long time. But I have a whole inventory, and this isn't outside of this training, but I have a lot of our clients, I'm like, make a list of all your stories and build an inventory of all these stories, because you're gonna need them all the time. When someone's got a concern, you gotta resolve it with story. And so it's like, the better you do this, the more you do it, the better you become at it. So make an inventory of stories. Here's all my different stories. And again, make sure you read the book. We talk about inventory stories, how to create and how to like find the right stories and how to use it to resolve concerns. I wish I could go deeper, but if we do, we'll be here for like 40 hours. So, all right. So we'll talk about that. So Epiphany Bridges is kind of like bridges. So that's kind of the overarching idea of an Epiphany Bridge, okay? The story. And so again, you guys can go deeper here inside the book if you want to. But the biggest thing is becoming good at telling stories, because the entire Perfect Webinar framework is literally, it's 4 stories, a stack and a close to the offer, okay? So I'm going to kind of map it out. And it's been a while since I've taught this new, so I'm kind of excited. I'm mapping it out because as we go into the actual presentation, you're going to see it. I want you to be like, oh, that's what he did here. Here's what he did here. Here's what he did here. Okay. So if you look at making sure this gets on the camera. All right. So this is like the beginning. This is Russell's Doodles. Hopefully you guys don't mind. All right. So this is the initial framework. Now I internally what we kind of call it like the one thing, and then the 3 secrets. 3. Okay. One thing I want to talk about, or just kind of say before we get too deep in this, what's funny is I've done this so much. I've taught some people on this. So like when I do these presentations nowadays, it's hard because people are like, oh, Russell's here it comes. Here's his one thing. Here's his 3 secrets. And so what's fun is that Funnel Hacking Live this year, we were doing our pitch for our 2 Calling Club X coaching program. I was like, so if I start with like my existing framework as they know, everyone would have been like, here comes the pitch. And so we did the exact same framework, but it's funny if you guys go back and watch that, the same framework, but we tweaked it, and nobody knew it was a perfect webinar until like halfway through the offer. People were like, he just did the perfect webinar on us. We didn't even know. So you can do it stealth, or you can do it the way that we kind of do it, but it's the same thing. Okay, so the one thing, so if you come back to what we talked about earlier, right? Opportunity switch. Like I'm trying to give everybody an opportunity switch, okay? So I was thinking like, what's the one thing I have to get them to believe if they're gonna take this new opportunity, right? And so that's kind of the first thing to think about. Now, when I'm starting this presentation, there's a couple things I do. You'll notice I'm trying to build rapport quickly. I'm trying to get them to make small commitments fast. And if I use social commitments, it's even better. So commitments, rapport, trying to build a relationship with attractive character, which is me, or you if it's your presentation, stuff like that. So I'm trying to like do some things at the very beginning, but at the same time, this is where I'm telling my very first Epiphany Bridge story, and this is what I call my origin story. Okay, it's the origin story about why I believe that this opportunity switch is what I'm taking to. So I'm basically selling somebody in the first 15 minutes of the webinar. Like I'm doing my first Epiphany Bridge, and for some people, it's enough. They would just go buy right then. Like if I only had, like someone's like, you got 20 minutes to sell something, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna tell my origin story and then transition to the stack and the close, right? Because that'll get a lot of people to go and buy. But then, because I've got 90 minutes traditionally, 60, 90 minutes, I go deeper here, and there's 3 more stories we tell, but they all have the same goal. The whole goal of this is to basically knock down the big domino. Like, what's the one thing I need them to believe? So I went to 10X, I was like, okay, the whole theme of this event is that we're gonna 10X your company, right? So my goal is like, if I can get them to believe that the only way that they're actually gonna 10X their company in the next 12 months is if they master funnels, they have to give me money, right? That's my blue ocean. I'm the funnel dude. There's nobody else. Like, if they want to be successful, they want to 10X their business, I'm the only way to do that. So I have to get them to believe that, right? It's not just like, oh, like funnels are nice. If they leave like, oh yeah, funnels are nice, they're not going to buy. I have to get them to believe that the only way to get the result that they want. So I know at this event, they're trying to 10X their business, right? That's what all you guys who were there, that was your goal. I need to 10X my business. So the only way you can 10X your business realistically in the next 12 months is by mastering funnels. That's it. If I can get you to believe that, then you have to give me money, right? You have to. There's no if, and, or buts about it. If that's really your goal and that's really the result you're looking for, and if I can get you to believe that this is the only way to do it, then you have to give me money. Does that make sense? So for you, that's the argument you got to make. It's like, what's the goal they have? I need to get them to believe that my blue ocean is the only way they can actually get that. Okay. Now, if you didn't create your offer right, okay, if you create an improvement offer, it makes this first part really, really hard. Okay, actually, like, yeah, this is a better way to do it. It's like, yeah, but it's still the same way, or there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of mousetraps. Like, if I want this to be like, I want to be boldness. I want, like, you'll see, I'm pretty bold. Like, the only way, like, my belief is the only way you can do this is by giving me money. Like, that's it. In fact, I even do the price marinade, which I'm going to show you guys, where I get them to all commit that if I can prove to you that this is the way to do it, we give me $11,000. And everyone in the audience is like, yes, I will give you $11,000 if you prove me that's what it is, okay? So the first thing about origin story, to try to explain why I believe that this new opportunity I'm giving them is the only way for them to get the result of the one thing that they actually are there for, right? So I'm telling my first Epiphany Bridge story, right? So this is the origin story. So this is you telling your backstory. And the cool thing about this is it's telling this first thing. It's your first shot at kind of knocking down this big domino. But I'm also, because I'm telling my backstory, I'm building rapport. I'm doing all those other things. I'm building a relationship with attractive character that actually care about me. And then it makes everything else easier as well, okay? So it's not just like I'm telling a story to brag. I'm telling a story because this is my first shot at trying to knock down that big domino, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So that's the first story. So for each of you guys, think back, what is your Epiphany Bridge story about why you believe, if I bring this back out, why you believe that this new opportunity that you're offering them is the secret to their success, why it's the only way they can actually get the result that they are trying to achieve, okay? So there's your origin story. Anything else? Yeah, I have my notes here. Like the origin story is how you made that opportunity switch, how you switched from, here's all the other vehicles I tried in the past, but I found out funnels were the key. And I'm going to convince you today that this is the key. And if I convince you that, boom, like it's the only way to do it, then you got to give me money, okay? All right, so that's kind of the origin story. Your story about how you made that opportunity switch, how you shifted from all the vehicles you tried in the past and figured out this was the key, this is what gave you the achievement, and now you're going to show them how the same thing is true for them, okay? So I'm going slow. I'm making sure I'm not missing anything as I move from point to point. All right. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about here. This is a concept called the price marinade that I learned from Myron Golden, and I'd never done it before. I'd done it on a webinar once, but I did it incorrectly. So this is the first time I'd ever done it. I was so scared to do this. I almost took it out of my slides the day before. But finally, I'm just going to do it. So the concept of the price marinade. So Myron taught me this. He said that he does these like 3 or 4 day long events, and the very first day he comes in and he's like talking about his high-end programs he sells, and he'll get a marker on the whiteboard and he'll put it on the corner and he'll like, my high-end program is $39,000 a year, and he'll write up there and people see it. And the first thing that happens, they get sticker shock of like, holy crap, $39,000, like that is a lot of money. And then he leaves it there, and that number's there for the entire 3-day event. He's like, my goal now for the next 3 days is to convince them that whatever I'm selling is worth at least $39,000, right? So he's doing other things, showing this, showing all these people making money, and showing all these different things. And by the end of day 3, that number starts getting cheap in their mind. It gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, till eventually it's like, man, 39 grand would be worth it, because then I could do, then if it's going to make me $1 million, $39,000 seems really, really cheap, right? So that price, you take the sticker shock off, you marinate it, and then when you come back to the actual offer, then he's like, actually, for you guys, it's not going to be $39,000. You get it for $10,000. They're like, I've been trying to figure out for the last 3 days how to pay $39,000. Now I know it's only 10. Oh, I'm in. And it makes it really, really easy. So I want to do that here. I wanted to make it where I wanted everyone to believe that whatever it is I'm going to sell at the end is going to cost $11,552. So what I do, $552. This is how I do the price marinade. Those who are at 10X, you remember this. I told my original origin story about funnels, and I said, I believe funnels is the only way that you can 10X your business. In fact, if I can prove to you guys today that funnels are the only way, right? My one thing, the only way you can 10X your business in the next 12 months. If I can prove you that, will you give me $11,000? Because that's basically mean you made $1 million. So if I made you, whatever, if you're at 10, if you're at 100,000, I can't remember exactly what I did. We'll see it together. It's been a little while. But I basically showed, if you 10X your business, what is that? Is that an extra 100,000? Is it $1 million? Is it 10 million? So if I can give you an extra $10 million in your business, you give me $11,000. And everyone's like, yes. I'm like, okay, cool. Because in about 45 minutes from now, I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to ask you to pay me $11,550 to help you to do this. So I just want you to be prepared for that. So I did the price marinade. And so what happens, I'm ripping off the sticker shock. Everyone's like, $11,550, holy crap. And then I'm convincing them through the whole rest of this process. I'm convincing by the time I get to the end, in their mind, they're going to pay $11,000. When I come back, it's only 3. Boom. Now it seems super inexpensive, right? So that's kind of the concept. So origin story happens there. I did the price marinade. Again, the first time I ever done it, I loved it. I will probably do it again. Anyway, feel free to try it or not try it. It's intimidating, but man, when it worked, it works really good. Okay. All right. So again, tell origin story. Tell my very first story. Again, a big percentage of the audience, that's all they need, and they will give you money right then. Because I could just transition to my offer and my close right now. But because we've got the format where we're on stage for, usually, traditionally, the way the timeline works, you got 60 minutes on stage and then 30 minutes for your pitch. Okay, so it's a 90-minute presentation. So I've got basically about 60 minutes to do this part. So I spend about 15 minutes right here on this part, if you look at the clock. And then it's about 15 minutes on each of these. That gives me an hour, and my stack and my close is about 30 minutes. Okay, so that's kind of the timeline. Okay, so this is the first thing. I give them the epiphany bridge story about how my opportunity switch. Hopefully they're in, but now transition to say, okay, now I'm going to walk you guys through, and I traditionally I'm going to walk you 3 different secrets. Because I love secrets. All my books are .com secrets, expert secrets, traffic secrets. I love secrets. So I'm like, I got 3 secrets. Secret number 1 is this. Secret number 2, secret number 3. Okay. Now the strategy behind this is, again, everything I'm doing, there's a domino, right? Everyone that's buying something, there's the big domino. Here's a domino, right? That we got to knock over. I heard Tim Ferriss talk one time, and someone asked him, hey, can we follow you around all day with the camera and show people what you do? And he's like, my life is really boring. And he's like, if you were to actually see me, he's like, you'd be really confused. I wake up in the morning, he's like, I drink some coffee, I meditate, I go for a jog, I take a nap, read a book. He's like, I might spend a week or 2 weeks or a month trying to figure out all the different things I could be doing. What's the one big domino? If I can knock that domino down, would it either knock down all the other dominoes or make them irrelevant? Okay. And I heard him say that, and I was like, oh my gosh, the same thing is true in selling, right? What a lot of people try to do on stage is they try to sell this and this and this, and they're trying to close all these concerns, right? If you're selling one-on-one, that's what you do. You make the main pitch, and then you're like, what's your concern? And you knock it off. With stage presenting, it's not that way. My goal is to figure out what's the one thing that I got to get them to believe. If I get them to believe that one thing, all their other concerns disappear, right? Because if I can convince you that for you, the only possible way for you to 10X your company in the next 12 months is by doing this program. If I convince you that, you're not going to be like, well, Russell, what should I use for my email autoresponder? Well, how much is it going to cost for, blah, blah, blah. All those concerns disappear because you're like, I don't know any answers, but the only way for me to do it is this, therefore I must do it, right? So I'm always trying to figure out in any sales presentation, what's the one big domino I'm going to do? Okay, if you look at this presentation, I'm not trying to knock down 4 dominoes. That's one of the big mistakes people make. I'm trying to figure out what's the one thing I need to get them to believe, and then this is 4 shots at that, okay? There's different things. So my origin story, again, there's this thing, I'm trying to knock down that thing, and for some people, the origin story knocks down the big domino and they're in, right? But what happens then for a lot of people, they hear the thing and they're like, oh, that's exciting. Like, okay, cool, I want a funnel, and also the but comes out is that, I run this kind of company, is that really good for me? So the very first question that typically comes out is questions they have about the vehicle. Okay? So questions about the vehicle. So I tell a story about funnels, like, cool, funnels sound awesome, but I don't know if this works for my business, right? Like that vehicle sounds good, but I don't know, like, do I really want a Ferrari to get my result? I don't know. And they have all these questions about the vehicle. So now it's like this little brace that comes up here. So I'm like, crap, okay, I got to knock down that domino. So I have to convince them. I have to, like, what's another story I can tell them that makes it so that they understand, like, that vehicle is for me. Okay, so I'm going to try and knock down that thing, and hopefully I'll knock down the big domino. Okay? Now what happens after they believe, like, okay, this vehicle is for me, then they're like, the next thing comes up is also they have all these internal fears of like, well, I don't know if I can actually do it. Like, I know that, like, someone else could do it, but, like, I don't know about me. And also the internal fears come up. So this is the internal fears. Okay. And so then my next story here is to try to destroy their internal false beliefs. So the false beliefs about the vehicle, the false beliefs about their internal ability to execute with the vehicle. And then the third thing we transition to is then people come out with their external beliefs. Who else are they going to blame about why it can't work? Now I got to take that. I tell a story that breaks the false beliefs about their external belief. And if I do that, now I've gotten basically 4 shots at this domino. All of the fears, the false beliefs they have been knocked down. Boom, and the domino falls over. And at that point they have to give you money. If they don't give you money, then they're lying to themselves. It becomes this huge, like, schizophrenia for themselves, and it's really complicated. They lay in bed at night like, I should have bought. Why didn't I buy it? Blah 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 blah, blah, and all sorts of stuff. Which is why the repitch I'm going to talk about here in a minute works really really good, because if you knock down that domino through this process and they don't lie, they are literally lying to themselves. Okay, it causes all sorts of problems. That's why the close rate gets so high when you do this correctly, because you broke down all these false beliefs. Now they actually have the ability to go and do the thing. And the next best part is because you broke down these false beliefs, their ability to fulfill on the thing you just sold them 10x's. Okay, because now they don't have these false beliefs holding them back. Okay. All right, so the next thing here, so you gotta tell my original origin story about why I made the opportunity switch. Now I come over here, what's the vehicle? So for me, like, my vehicle I'm trying to get people in is funnels, right? So I'm like, hey, what's the story I need to tell to get them to believe that funnels are the key? Now, I've done this presentation so many times over the last 4 or 5 years, it changes all the time. But I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I make this so that they believe this? Okay, now again, I'm not teaching, like, how do I explain this? Like number one, it's a story. In the story, I can teach them what, but I don't go into how. And then the goal of the story is to break their false belief. Only reason why people aren't giving you money and following what you do is because they don't believe you. They have some false belief that's keeping them back. Okay? So what I do is I go and I tell this story about whatever it is to break the false beliefs. And at the end of that, if I did my job right, they should be like, he's right, I do need a funnel. He's right, ketosis is the right kind of weight loss program for me. He's right, I do need to get a new car. He's right, like, I do need the Cutco knives or whatever, right? Whatever your thing is, right? That's what they should believe. Okay, now again, for some people, that's enough. And you could transition to the stack and the clothes right now and get their money, okay? But again, because I'm not selling one-on-one, I don't know when the domino's knocked over for people. So that's why story is important to keep them entertained. So even if they're knocked over here, I'm still entertaining them, and they're just getting more and more excited to buy it at the end. I'm telling the stories, okay? So I'm telling the stories about the what. It shows them the what. That's the teaching. You're teaching what, not the how. And then it breaks false beliefs, and then boom. Okay, now what's going to instinctively happen to a percentage of people is like, cool, funnels are the key. Cool, ketosis is the key. Cool, whatever your thing is. And they're like, but I don't know if I can do it. I don't know how to build a funnel. I'm not technical. I don't know if I can actually eat healthy food all the time. I don't know if I can afford a new car. I don't know if, whatever their thing is, right? They're making up their own story in their mind that's going to keep, like, this is why I can't do it. Like, I don't know, for most people it works, but for me it might not work because I just know myself personally. Okay, so the second big domino is I got to prove to them they can actually do it. Okay, so I tell a story. Okay, showing them the what's, breaking the false beliefs. Okay, same 3 things here. So for me, it's like ClickFunnels. Like, I convince them they're funnels, and like, but I'm not technical. I'm a tech team. I can't do it. And I'm like, cool. I'm not technical either. In fact, let me show you how I build a funnel. I show them. I'm like, this is how simple it is. I move things around. Oh, it's so easy. And they're like, oh my gosh, I could actually do that. I believe funnels are the key. I believe I can actually do that. It's gonna be amazing. And they're like, oh. So then it switched from the internal. So first is the fear about the vehicle, then the fear about the internal ability to execute on the thing that you're offering them. And the third thing is like, well, I believe that funnels are the way. I believe that I could actually do that, but I don't know how to get people to the funnel. So if I had a funnel, no one's going to show up. So for me, external is the traffic. In weight loss, it's like, I believe ketosis is the key. I actually believe I could eat bacon and butter all day. That sounds really, really good. But I know when I go home, like my spouse, my wife, she's gonna have candy and the kids are there and it's gonna be impossible. Like, so I'm gonna blame it on the spouse or whatever it is, right? So I gotta figure out what the external false belief they have. And then that's the third thing, is you got your story, where you're showing them the what, and you're breaking the false beliefs. And that's the third thing. And if you do that correctly, now it's done. And now it's like, I believe this is the way, I believe I can do it. There's nothing else holding me back. Russell, I have to give you money. I believe it. The domino has been knocked over. Okay? And so that's the training, the teaching portion of this whole thing, you guys. You're finding their false beliefs that are keeping them back. Our whole goal is to get people the result, right? So what are the false beliefs that are keeping them from switching into the vehicle that you believe in and then actually driving the vehicle up here? We identify what those false beliefs are, and from that, that's what we're creating our stories and crafting stories around. Okay, so you'll see this again as we show the video. You'll see me telling this, my origin story, telling this story, telling this story, telling this story to try to break those things. That's what I'm doing. That's my entire goal, okay, is to do those things. And so those of you guys who bought, if you're here, you bought, so therefore it worked for you. I was able to destroy it where you believe that was the right vehicle, you believe that you could actually execute on it, and you believe there's nothing external holding you back. And now you're ready to rock and roll, right? Like that's what I'm looking for here. Okay. All right. So that's the training part of it. If your webinar is not converting, what's typically happening, a couple things, this is like, so you can spot check yourself, is when you go into your story and you're going to the thing, you're going to flip from like showing them what's possible mode to the teaching mode. And I just want to re-stress and re-emphasize. You think you're helping them, but you're actually hindering them. Because they'll get so caught up in like, oh, cool, I think I can do it now. They'll go on their own way. What's going to happen is they're going to be like, and they'll never get to the result. Okay? If you want to serve them at the highest level, you have to focus on breaking their false beliefs so that they will actually come on this journey with you. Okay? That is the key. I want you guys to understand that. Okay? All right, anything else I want to talk about here? I want to make sure. Okay, so that's kind of the piece here. All right. And I've used this Epiphany Bridge script many times in here. I've used tons of kind of like bridges. I've used mini stories. You'll see, in fact, I challenge you guys as we do this to go back and watch the actual presentation and count how many little stories and mini stories I tell throughout the 90-minute presentation at 10X event. You'll see a lot of them. Okay, so that's the training part. This should end at about an hour. Okay. Now at the hour we transition into us actually selling them something. This is where we have a chance to make them this irresistible offer that we're so excited about sharing with them, right? And so what's interesting is that this is where a lot of people start freaking out. Now obviously we have a lot of salespeople here, so a lot of you guys will be fine with it, but a lot of people we have this weird thing where we don't understand that selling is serving, and like, I don't know, I tried, when I first got started about this business, I got so excited and I just wanted to like give this to everybody. It's kind of funny looking back on it now. So I remember my very first event, I tried to sell an event and I sold it for $5,000 and I think I sold 3 tickets. And I was like, I'm gonna be embarrassed when only 3 people show up. So I invited all my friends and my family, all these people to come to attend the event. So they all came and they sat in the same room with these guys. And what's interesting is that they were all excited and into it, but the people that were there, the 3 people that invested money to be there, all 3 of them ended up launching successful businesses. The 27 other people I invited for free, 100% of them didn't do anything ever. It's weird. There's this weird thing with commitment. When people pay, they pay attention, okay? And so for me, like, the more I love my audience, the more I want to charge them stuff, because those who pay, they pay attention. Like, it's this weird thing. There's something weird about pulling money out of your bank account and giving it to somebody else that causes a commitment to actually be made. And so I have so I have no fear of selling, because I have such a strong belief. I know that in that 9,000 people in that room, we sold a little over 1,000 people. The other 8,000 people, it bothers me because I know that they know this is true. They know they need to do this, and they're not doing anything with it. And I'm gonna see half of next year's event. And I'll be like, where are you at? And they're like, we haven't moved. Did you 10X your business? Nope. Okay, because they didn't make the commitment. So I believe like I have a moral obligation to do everything in my power to get them to make that commitment, because as soon as they make a financial commitment, they're more likely to actually do the thing you're trying to get them to do. I want compliance because I don't care about money. I'm not a money motivated person. A lot of people don't believe that about me. It's true, I'm not money motivated. I am so obsessed with the results of my customers, and I know the biggest thing I found to get people results is charge them a crap ton of money. That's it. We have a inner circle group. We just raised the price $50,000 a year, and guess what? Almost all of them are successful. It's very rare. Okay? The more I charge, the more successful people are. So I want to give that to you because it's my belief pattern, and if it becomes your belief pattern, you won't feel awkward. You're going to feel like this is the part where you're serving the most. You're forcing them to get off the line of like dabbling and wondering and making them make a commitment to actually change. Okay. So with that said, I make a transition. I always try to make a little joke in the transition, and a couple things I do. Number one is typically, I can't remember in this presentation, I can't remember if I did or not, but I usually recap like, hey, in the last 60 minutes we covered a lot of stuff. I talked about this and this and this and this. How many of you guys feel a little overwhelmed? Somebody show a picture of a girl with a fire hose in their mouth. People laugh. Oh, I feel overwhelmed. I said, that's okay. I wanted to give you guys the framework so you had that. So when you leave here today, you've got stuff you can start running with. But I know that there's so much more I can do for you and do with you that I couldn't do in a 60-minute presentation. And so what I do, this is the key, I always ask permission. I learned this from, I think, Joel Bauer. I'm pretty sure I learned from him. And ever since I started doing it, it changed everything. So what I normally do is I would like do my presentation. I try to sneakily slip into my pitch. And every time I do that, like you get angry people popping up, walking out. It got really, really awkward. And so Joel Bauer, I swear it was Joel, he told me, he's like, always ask for permission. At first I was like, I'm not gonna ask him for permission to sell. It's like the most embarrassing, scary thing ever. And one time I tried it, and what was crazy is that nobody got up. Not one person got up. And I didn't get anybody tell me that was just a pitch fest. It changed the whole perspective. So I get done, I said, I served you guys at my highest level, but I know there's more. I want to give you more. I want to serve you more. There's so much more I want to do. I talked to Grant before the event, and I asked him if he'd be okay if I made you guys a special offer, because I know that you guys are going to need the software. You're going to need some more training. There's more stuff I can give you. He said that he was totally okay with me making you guys a special offer if you were okay with it. You guys okay if I spend about 5 or 10 minutes to make you guys a really special offer to make this whole process really, really simple for you? You guys okay with that? I ask him permission and I wait. What happens is always people say, yes, please, take my credit. You hear people, take my wallet, take my credit card. Like, it's really cool. I think once I was in a smaller group and I did that and nobody said anything and I was like awkward. And I did this really weird thing that worked really good. So I'm going to give you that because it works. So I said it. I was like, so I did it and then and nobody said anything. And I was like, okay, well, because I already know this. I can go back to the room if you guys are good because I already know this. I'm okay with it. And I started kind of walking away and people are like, no, tell us. I'm like, you sure? And they're like, yeah, please tell us. I'm like, all right, I'll come back. So I asked for their permission as I transition. Like, that's it. So the way I do it, I said, let me ask you guys a quick question. Are you guys okay if I spend 5 or 10 minutes real quick making a special offer that's going to go make all the stuff we talked about really, really easy to implement in your life? And they're like, yes. Cool. Now they're giving you permission. Now you can go for as long as you want. Nobody will walk out. Nobody will be upset. They'll be expecting you to sell, and they're really, really cool with it. Okay? So that's the key. All right? Now this is where we come back to the stack slide. So the transition, then we got the stack. So here's the stack slide we ended with in the first presentation, right? We're going to get this. You're going to get this, you're going to get this. Here's the thing that are going to get. Total value. Okay. Now a couple things I want to bring back to this now. So what's interesting is as we went through here, right, we talked about their false beliefs about the vehicle, about their internal and their external. So when I'm creating my offer here, these are actually syncing up together. Okay. So I make this offer, like this is typically the first component of my offer typically is like me teaching the process that gets them into this vehicle, right? Even if it's a supplement, like if I'm selling a supplement, the first thing I'm teaching them is a training course on how to actually maximize the supplement to be able to get the result that they want, right? So it's like a training portion. And then when I'm creating the next part of the offer, it's not so much I'm creating more training. I'm looking at each of these things here and like, what do I have that I can give them that's going to make it so this external fear is no longer here, right? So for this one, it's traffic. Like, I don't know about traffic. So I'm going to make part of my offer here something that addresses this external fear. Some people still have that fear or it might re-emerge, whatever. So I want to knock that down in the offer as well. Some people, like, it's internal. So I have part of my offer that relates to the internal, part of people that are coming back here, right? If you look at my offer that I'm creating for people, as you'll see when we go through the whole presentation, the parts of the offer are talking about the vehicle, right? So the vehicle, I got the training and the software that gives you the vehicle, right? Internal fear, like I don't know how to write copy, so I got funnel scripts in here. External, I don't know how to get traffic. Okay, so we got traffic secrets in here. So like, when you're creating the offer, it's matching what you're doing here. That's why they kind of go together, if that makes sense. A couple other things, notice like it doesn't always have to be more training. A lot of times like people are like 6-week course on this and on this and on this and on this, and it's like too overwhelming for people. Some of the best bonuses, one of the best bonuses I ever did is we teach people a high ticket system for selling really expensive things on the phone. And I have a 2-page script that's done for me over $10 million in sales. That I can track back over $1 billion in sales from people I know that use it. And so when I sell that program, one of my bonuses is a 2-page script. And that pushes the needle more than like a 6-week training course would, right? So it's like, I'm always looking like when I'm doing this process, what are all the byproducts that happen during the process, right? What are the other things that are created? Like, if I was selling like a business in a box, I might be like, here's the legal documents you need to create your business in your hometown. Here's the place I get my logos from. Like all the things that they are going to need, they're going to keep them back, right? Again, come back to what we talked about in the earlier session. If you're selling the phone, right? What are all the different things you can include in here to make this the most irresistible offer that make sure that they're going to be successful what you're creating, okay? So the stack slide is kind of key of this. Now, this concept of the stack I learned from a guy named Armin Morin. It was back when I was first starting this whole public speaking thing, and I was selling on stage. And I was doing okay, but nothing like big. And I got invited to speak at Armin's big seminar, which for me was exciting because the first seminar I ever went to was Armin's. This was like 3 or 4 years later. He invited me to speak at it. I was like so excited. And 2 weeks before I went to speak at it, I was at another event. It was Dan Kennedy's big event, and Armin was one of the speakers there. And so I'm sitting in the audience watching everything, and I see Armin get up there on stage, and he does his thing, and he by far outsold everybody else. Like it wasn't even close. And he was like one of the last speakers last day. So I watched him do his whole pitch, his close. He sold everybody, and then I kind of lingered while everyone was leaving. At the end of it, it was just like a couple people in the ballroom left, and he came up to me. He had a stack of order forms. It was like this fat, and he walked up. He said, "You know what these are?" I'm like a stack of order forms. He's like, "Nope. Each of these is the $2,000 bill." And I was like, holy cow. I was like, how much is it? And he was like, I can't remember, it was like $400,000 or $500,000. I was just like, what in the world? And he's like, you want to stack order forms like this in my event in 2 weeks? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, I'm gonna teach you one thing. And if you do this, you'll end up with a stack of order forms. If you don't do it, you won't. I was like, okay, what is it? He's like, I did it during the presentation. Did you see it? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I saw the presentation, but I don't really know what you did. He's like, it's this concept that we call the stack and the close. He called it the stack. And I said, well, how does it work? He said, okay, I'm gonna explain this to you, and then I'll send you my slides so you can see it, but this is the concept. He said, what most speakers do is they do all their stuff up front and they create an offer. And what they do in the offer is that they're like, the first thing you're gonna get is this, and they give them like the best thing up front, right? And they're like, the next thing you're gonna get is this, and they give them like the next best thing. The next thing you're gonna get this, and this, and this, and this. And he said, the human mind can only remember one thing at a time. So what happens is that they have the best thing, and they talk about the next best thing, and the third best, fourth best, fifth best, and they get to the last best thing, and they have the last best thing here. And he's like, and then they go and they talk about the price. He said, then they talk about the price right here. He says, if you look at that, he's like, all your mind remembers is the last thing. So the worst bonus, then they associate with the price. And so they look at that and they're like, that's not worth $2,000 or $3,000, whatever it is. He's like, and then try to do all the rest of their closing and stuff like that. He says that they do that. He says what happens is that the sales, they tank. He said, I developed this process called a stack. So he said, what I do is I take my stack slice and here's the first thing you're gonna get. And he talks about it. And they get all excited. He's like, says, what that means you're gonna get this. He says, I have a stack slice. This is the first thing you're gonna get. And then there's the price down below, the total value. He's like, then I move on to component number 2 of the bonus. I talk about that, and all they remember is that. And they come back to the stack slide again. It's like, okay, so what that means is you're gonna get number 1 and number 2. And they're like, oh my gosh, I get both of those, total value of this. And then he goes back into, he's like, here's the third component. You get this, this, and this. And he comes back to it. Because that means you're going to get 1, 2, and 3. So every single time you come back to the stack slide, back to the stack slide. And then the very last thing you show them is the stack slide with everything on there. And then you reveal the price. Now they're associating the price with everything as opposed to just bonus number 12, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that's definitely worth it. He's like, if you do the stack, he's like, you'll make way more money. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is scary and nervous, but I was like, I trust him, so I put it together. 2 weeks later, I went to his event, did my stack, and it was the first time I ever made over $100,000. I think I did like my take home was 80, so $160,000 in sales doing it. And I remember at first, it was funny because I felt kind of like weird and awkward doing it, because the first time you do it, it's like, this is kind of weird. But I made $160,000. I walked over with $80,000 from it. And I was just like, I can't make $80,000 in a day. And I did the stack 1 or 2 more times, but then I felt kind of weird doing it. So I was like, I'm not gonna do it anymore. So then I went to the next presentation and I pulled the stack out, did my whole presentation, and it was like crickets. I was like, that's weird. So another presentation, same thing, crickets. And I was like, what the crap? I was like, the only thing difference is the stack. So I put the stack back in. Next time I spoke, over $100,000 again in sales. I was like, I will never do a presentation in the history of my life ever again where I don't do the stack, and I haven't. And it has made me literally hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm not saying like it's hundreds of millions, like ClickFunnels are over $100 million. It's all based on this. Really good software with a stack. And so the stack is the key. Like everything we talked about offer earlier, it's the key. And the stack slide and how we do the presentation is important. So when you guys watch this with me together, I want you to watch. We come in here. I'm going to do my origin story, secret 1, secret 2, secret 3. I'm going to break all the false beliefs. I'm going to ask for permission to sell to you. And I'm going to come through, I'm going to do the stack slide, okay? I'm going to offer number 1, talk about it. Boom, offer 2, offer 3, offer 4, offer 5. You'll see me do the whole stack slide, okay? At the end of it, then we come back and we have like, here's the total value. So for me, the number was $11,552. And I tell them, I said, does that number look familiar for anybody here? I was like, remember earlier today I told you guys that if I can convince you that funnels are the key to 10x in your business, you had to pay me $11,552? And all of you guys committed to that. So right now, basically, that's the price. So how many of you guys are, and I asked them about it. I was like, that's the price we talked about earlier. And you guys all said yes to that. So again, the price marinated happened, came back, and this was the total value, was the actual price. I said, now, what's cool about this is I'm not going to charge you guys that. But I want to ask you a question. I learned this from Dave Van Hoos. He calls these if-all statements. I need them to believe that this is actually worth that, and it is. They need to believe it as well. I believe it is. They need to believe it as well. So again, I get them to do it here. They have the price marinated the whole time. I come here, I get to $11,552. They see it. Now I need them to say that it is worth that at least 3 times. So say, I'm not going to charge you $11,552, but let me ask you a question. If all that this did was give you blank, tie back to the vehicle. If all this did was give you a funnel where you put $1 in advertising in and get $2 back out, would it be worth $11,552? And everyone in the head says, yes. And so, okay, let me ask another question. If all that this did, back to internal, was give you the ability to get your message out to more people, would it be worth it? Yes. That's the third question. If all that this did was give you the ability to finally stop having to glue together 30 different systems to build a funnel, would it be worth $11,552? Yes. Okay, so for an hour, they convinced themselves it's worth $11,552. 3 times in a row, they told me, yes, 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 it's worth $11,552. Now, I'm going to drop the price. Now I come down and I drop the price down to what it's actually going to be. And now when I say it's only $3,000, they're like, dude, I'm in. Boom, table rush, people sprinting to all different angles, if you saw that. Okay, so that's kind of the framework. Now, you'll notice other things I'm going to talk about. There's different ways I do my closes throughout here. There's different stuff. There's things that I do on a webinar that I can't do in a live event and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk about a couple of those things just so you guys are aware. I took some notes on stuff I want to talk about. Just so some of the nuances you'll understand they're different from this versus a webinar. So if I was on a webinar, when I do my webinar, it's actually a 2-hour process. Okay, so here's the clocks, right? The first hour is this right here. The second 30 minutes is the stack and the close here. And if I'm on a webinar, I spend another 30 minutes doing they are Q&As, but like me just closing over and over and over again. I'm not reading Q&As people send me because sometimes you get hecklers that like throw you off, but I have pre-written like 30 minutes of Q&As. I keep doing Q&As, answering questions and pushing people to buy, right? This people have like one concern, it's like knowing them, so I just like try to answer every concern I can dream of to get them to buy. And so for a webinar, it's a 2-hour process. When I'm at an event, I don't have the time to do Q&A, so it's only 90 minutes. I don't do Q&A, okay? So there's cool things you can do in the Q&A that you can't do at a live webinar or a live event. And if you could, even if someone will give you Q&A time, don't take it. You don't want, it'll kill the momentum at a live event. If people are asking questions, you'll kill everything, okay? Events are all about momentum. I have to get people stepping up and moving towards the back. If people see other people moving, there's a social proof starts happening. It's really, really cool, okay? So you'll notice like, when I spoke at the first 10X event where I speak normally on stage, as soon as I introduce the price, I give people permission. Okay, I say, as soon as I do the price drop, I say, the first time I reveal it's $3,000. On a webinar, the same thing. As soon as I reveal $3,000, from that point forward, every single slide has the URL they can go to sign up. And I don't give to them prior, I give to them as soon as that point. Same thing, as soon as I reveal the price, that's the first time I give people permission. So if you're in, you have permission to stand up and go to the back of the room to get started. Okay, so I give them permission to stand up and go to the back of the room. That'll get people starting to pop up. Okay, and if they don't, I keep moving forward. I'm gonna say it 3 or 4 times so I see people popping up. And when you see someone popping up, be like, whoa, those guys get it. And everyone will like turn their heads and see everybody who's popping up. And also you see them like, oh crap, and they start scurrying, and that causes the table rush, okay? But I'm gonna give them permission a couple times until I see people doing it, and as soon as I see people doing it, I'm gonna call them out, so everybody turns their head and they see it, and now they know this is the behavior that I want them to do. And like, yeah, you have my permission. If you're ready now, don't wait for me to keep talking. Like, you have my permission to stand up and go to the back of the room. Stand up, go to the back of the room. Okay, so I'm getting them to stand up and go to the back of the room over and over and over again. Let's see, okay. If you're speaking at an event, one of the worst things you can do is you can hand out order forms, okay? I see people all the time, they'll get to this point where they're talking about the value, all of a sudden order forms start handing out. What happens is all this rustling, everyone's looking around, they grab the paper, they're reading what's on the order form, and everyone loses all their attention to the thing, right? The fastest way to increase your sales at a live event is do not hand out order forms. Have them in the back. People must stand up and go to the back of the room to get the order forms, okay? And so if you see the first 10X event, that's what we did. That's how I got everyone to run to the side where we had a door with 3 people with boxes of order forms. When I speak at normal events, that's how we do it. We get people to run to the back of the room. So I'm giving permission to go to run to the back of the room. Now, at this year's event, at the 10X event, we had some issues. The issues were we had 9,000 people. There were a floor and 2 levels, and it was this huge arena. And we spent probably 2 months trying to figure this piece out. Because like if I hand out, first off, we can't hand out order forms to 9,000 people. But second off, there's not a back of the room. Like people have to go up the elevator 2 floors, run halfway around the thing, and over there is where your thing's gonna be, right? So like how are we gonna execute on this? It's gonna be so difficult. And so we finally did, we figured like, people have to have an order form at their desk. And they have to have a pen. A lot of them aren't going to have pens because we're in this huge state of 9,000. So my thought was like, how do I secretly put an order form and a pen in every single person's hand? Like that was the question, right? And so we got permission from Grant. So what we ended up doing, and those who were there, you probably remember this, is we gave you this really cool, a bag that said ClickFunnels on it. Inside the bag, there was an envelope. You open the envelope, there was a pen, there was a pop socket, there was like a sticker, all these really cool things. I'm like, oh, in fact, in my presentation, I have you like, open it up, pull it out, like, here's all this stuff. Oh, and they're all excited. What I don't ever mention is the 2 secret sneak attack things I was trying to get into everybody's seat, which was the order form with very few details on it and a pen. Because I wanted them to have it there so they could fill it out so they could run to wherever I had to tell them. That was number 1. So that was a big sneak attack that we took forever to orchestrate. My whole team was there for like 4 hours the night before, like putting those in everybody's seats, and it was expensive, probably 40, 50 grand for us to order all that crap to put in the bags. But I figured that's the way to get an order form into people's hands. Otherwise, it would have been really, really hard to process 9,000 orders, right? Number 2 is that in this room, there wasn't a back of the room. So you'll notice, I think 2 and maybe 3 times, I had to walk people through how to buy. Now, if this is your own event, what's interesting, if you look at my events as well, we train people how to buy throughout the events. When we do the big pitch later, they know how to buy, okay? For those who've been at Funnel Hacking Live, think about this. What do I do in day number 1 that trains everybody on how to buy something? Okay, think about that. Typically, we do some type of charity offer. Okay, and the goal of the charity offer is 3 things. 1 is to give money to charity. I actually care. Number 2 is to build rapport with me. Number 3 is to train people on how to buy. When you buy, you stand up and you go over to the form to the back of the room, right? So we're training people from day number 1. What's hard at Grant's event is they tried to train people on the app and they want to put my thing on the app. I'm like, no apps. Like we have to train people. So like I didn't have the ability like to train people without the event because I only had 90 minutes. So I'm like, how do I train them? So like 3 or 4 times I show like, this is what you gotta do. Step number 1, remember the packet earlier, you're gonna pull it out. You're gonna pull out this card right here, you're gonna fill out this card, then you're gonna run. If you're on the bottom floor, you're gonna go over here or here. From the second floor, you're gonna go here. Number 3, you're gonna go here. And like, I walk them through how to do it like 3 or 4 times. When you get this thing, you're gonna give this, and we're gonna hand you back this, right? Because otherwise people aren't trained to do it. And so like we had to train them in a finite period of time. So you'll notice like 3 times I do that where I'm showing them exactly how to do and what to do it. Okay, if it's in a normal room, I can be like, stand up and go to the back of the room, stand up and go to the back of the room. I can very simply train them very quickly. If it's your own event, again, you have multiple days to train people on how to do what you need them to do, to stand up, to go to certain parts of the room, right? It's the reason why, it's the reason why we do those kind of things, okay? So we're training them on how to get to where it is we need them to get in the room. So you'll notice that when you watch the presentation again, I show slides explaining it. And hopefully you'll see how we snuck attack the order forms and the pens. I can't remember how the footage looks, but that was the concept there. A couple other things that are interesting, and it's harder to do like a 10X event because like this, anyway, but if I'm in a traditional event, there's a lot of stuff, NLP and anchoring you can do in the room. It's kind of fun. If you've ever watched Robin Williams, his old stand-up comedy stuff, he was one of the best at this. He would go and he would work the stage really well. He'd like pick an anchor like a chair, right? And he would be telling a story. He'd walk over and every time he did the punchline, he'd put his hand on the chair as he told the punchline of the story. And he'd do that 3 or 4 times in a row. And what happened after that, then he'd walk over and if he needed to laugh, he would just touch the chair. And people were so anchored to the chair equals laughter, subconsciously they would start laughing. So like he would control it. He would create that emotional connection to the chair, and then he'd use that throughout the presentation when he needed to laugh different times. Or jokes weren't as funny, he'd still anchor to it and it would make people laugh after that. When I'm speaking from stage, I do the same thing. Like if I know that my goal is to get people to the back of the room, and I know that there's the sales table, but over here's the exit door where they're not gonna buy. When I'm talking about things, I'm gonna anchor stuff. I'm like, every time I talk about success, I'm gonna be pointing to the back of the room where the tables are at, and every time I talk about failure, I'm gonna point to the exit door, right? So I'm like, if you wanna be successful in life, you gotta be focused, you gotta be getting up, you gotta be moving things, and I'm always like pushing people subconsciously to where I need them to go to be successful. And when I'm talking about failure, I'm talking about the exit door. I'm pointing to the exit door consistently as I'm talking about things like that, okay? So I'm anchoring people and pushing them to the things like that subconsciously, and it's these weird little things that don't seem like they matter until you do a lot of speaking presentations weekend after weekend, you're testing stuff, and you're like, the audience is the same, everything's the same, except for I added this little piece into it. Another thing I want you guys to notice, sorry, these are just things I'm trying to remember off the top of my head that are important as we're queuing up for you guys to watch it. Ted Thomas, I talked to you guys about before, who's the Pied Piper, who would get people to like follow him with the credit cards in hand. he came to an event I was speaking at, and I saw him pop in the back of the room. I was like, oh man, I'm so nervous. And I did my presentation, and he's sitting back there just watching me the whole thing, and I get done, and I did pretty good on sales, but not amazing. But afterwards, he kind of hung out, and he's like, hey, do you want to go to lunch together? I'm like, heck yeah, dude, you are the Pied Piper of closing. I got so many questions for you. So we go to lunch, we're sitting there talking, he's asking a bunch of questions, and I'm just kind of talking like this, and he's like, hey, notice anything happening right now? I'm like, what? He's like, look at your head. I'm like, he's like, your head's nodding. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I have been making you say yes for the last 5 minutes of our conversation here at lunch together. I was like, okay. He's like, if I can teach you nothing else about selling from stage, like this is the key. He's like, when I was in your room, I was in the back of the room, I was watching everybody. Everybody was sitting there attentive, but all their heads were like flat. He's like, if you come to one of my presentations, you sit in the back of the room, he's like, people's heads are like this. It's like a wave of water the whole time. He's like, I do this thing called trial closes. I'm getting people to say yes throughout the whole time. He's like, because if I'm going to be asking for a big yes right here, okay, I want them to have said yes at least 100 times before I ever ask them for their money. So I do this thing called trial closes. I ask little yes or no questions. And by asking them a yes or no question, they'll start nodding their head. And the more you do it, the more they nod it. So now I become really good at this. If you watch any of our events, you'll notice people like this the whole time. Like everybody, the whole sea of heads are bobbing. I don't know if you'll be able to see the footage or not, but notice what I'm doing to cause that. I'll ask a question like, are you guys getting this? Does this make sense? Can you imagine that was you? Like, who here is excited right now? And I'm like asking all these little yes questions to get people to nod their head. You'll also notice when I show a success story, I don't just show the success story and move on. I show it and I'm like, are you guys getting this? Like, is that amazing what she accomplished? Like, isn't that awesome? Can you imagine you doing that? People are like, yeah. And I'm watching everyone's heads move, okay? Trial closes are huge. After that experience with Ted Thomas, we had an auto webinar at the time. And I remember flying home from meeting him, and I went through my auto webinar, and I didn't change the webinar at all. I just took the webinar, I re-listened the whole thing, and I wrote out, like, now that I know trial closes, where I would have put them in. And I typed out, like, I don't know, 50 different trial closes, and I recorded myself saying them, like, are you guys getting this? Does that make sense? Who here's in? Like, I started saying all these things. I recorded myself doing them all, and I had my brother weave them into the timeline of the presentation, and then re-upload the auto webinar video. And if you read my .com Secrets Labs 108 split test book, I actually showed the timeline and what I put in there for all of them. But we went from I think it was like $9.60 per registrant to over $16 per registrant. All we added in was the trial closes. So this stuff works like crazy. Always like little things like that. Keep seeing other things I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah. Okay, a couple of things. How we had to execute on 10X was different than anything else. I've used this technique twice now. So Brendan Bouchard told me one of the things that he's done. He's like, the problem is like what happens is you speak, you get up, people buy, and then like the next presenter happens, and they all run off, and they kind of forget, and it kind of breaks, and the sales end. And he's like, I wanted sales to keep happening throughout the day. So he's like, I had an idea. This is him telling me this. He had an idea. He's like, what if part of my offers, you get an actual picture with me? And so he's like, I did that. What happened is like I had a big line of people lined up doing pictures with me. He's like, and I started doing it. He said the coolest thing is like that line was big, and then throughout the day it kept getting bigger, so more people saw it, and the social proof was huge. More people kept doing it, more people kept doing it. And he's like, I was able to close for like 3 or 4 hours longer than normal because people kept seeing that and kept wanting it more. And he's like, the sales kept happening. He said people were like waiting in line, they didn't even go back in the next presenter because they were so focused on me. He's like, I was able to build even better rapport with them. And I was like, that's awesome. So that became, those who are 10X remember this. And at Funnel Hacking Live, I used it afterwards. Was like, part of the bonus is like, you're gonna get a picture with me. So what's gonna happen is after you stand up and you walk the thing and you do the thing, you're gonna run up this thing right here and go to D16 or whatever it was. And I got a booth out there with me, and I'm gonna get a picture with you. That way you'll have that picture to be able to have on your wall, to be able to remember whatever, and we'll do this picture thing. And that's the first time I'd ever done it. And I think I was out there for like 3.5 or 4 hours doing pictures afterwards. I think the next 2 or 3 presenters, like most of the audience wasn't there because they were getting pictures with me in the hall. And we had our people out there closing sales like crazy, and it kept pushing sales for 4 or 5 hours after the pitch was done. I've done that twice now. It works really, really good. It's a really powerful close technique. The other thing we did smart this time is we had everyone collect their cell phone numbers. And sometimes in the past we'd get people's orders, and we'd go back home and we'd process orders at home, and then we'd like try to like call the failed orders and stuff, and we always lost like a ton of them. So the 10X event, partially because I wanted to my goal was $3 million in 90 minutes. So I was like, we need to process all these orders tonight. So we had a hotel room with a whole staff out there processing orders like crazy. And all the ones that failed, we put them on a text message list. And then we started texting like, hey, your credit card failed, call us. Hey, your credit card failed, call us. And people started calling us. And then the next morning, like, hey, your credit card failed, come to the booth. We're gonna be back there and we can get things. And we were able to process another like $500,000 or so of failed credit card orders because we were text messaging while people were still at the event, while they were still excited. And so that was a huge thing for us that made a lot of money. It was awesome. And then the last thing I'll talk about, I don't know if we have the video of this, we might have it. I don't think I executed it perfectly, but it still worked. To push another $250,000 in sales through when we did 10X event, and then at Funnel Hacking Live event did another by $2.5 million in sales. Is a thing we call the repitch. And I learned this from Barry and Blue, who help run our events. And so what happens is at the 10X event, we did this whole thing, right? And what happens when people buy from this process, traditionally it's like an emotional purchase, right? Like they're going through the stories and the false beliefs are breaking, and like they have this emotion, and like this whole thing is choreographed to emotionally connect somebody and get them to do what you need them to do so you can get them the result that they want, right? But there's always the logical people who are like, well, logically, I don't know if this makes sense, and like they're sitting back there and doing all sorts of stuff. So the repitch is where you come back later and you try to logically close people, okay? Now after this happened, we weren't planning on doing a repitch, so I had nothing planned other than like the night after, maybe the next morning, I emailed Grant and Jared and like, hey, could we come back on stage for like 10 more minutes and just do a real quick repitch? I think we can close some more sales. And they're like, whatever, you did $3 million yesterday, you can do whatever you want. So came back and I just did a repitch. And my repitch, again, I'm not super proud of it. It did an extra $250,000 in sales. I think I could have a lot more if I would have like structured it better. But the goal of the repitch is to logically convince people. Okay, it's the people who like emotionally weren't sold, and all night long they were sitting there in bed and they were like nervous and awkward, and like mad they didn't do it. I come back next day and I give them a logical proof of why they need to buy. And now it's like, okay, I'm in. And now the logical buyers buy the next day because they've had this emotional, weird thing that's driving them crazy. They don't understand it. They just know it's not logical. And they have to come back with logical proof. Like logically, you need to understand that you know that sales funnels are the key. We're the only logical option that makes sense. Like, and I'll say the word logically 5 or 6 times. Dean Graciosi talking about this too. He did the same thing as logic close. And then make an additional offer. So what we did with the additional offer, as you guys know, is this. I said, how many of you guys would love to learn how I sell to the masses the way I just did? How many of you guys want to know how we made $3 million in 90 minutes? Okay, and if you guys get started during this break, we're also going to let you guys come access to this training course as well, and that pushed another $250,000 in sales of people who logically need that extra boost to kind of push them over, okay? So that was the repitch. Again, Funnel Hacking Live, we did the same thing. The next day we did a repitch that did another $2.5 million in sales, and so it's a big key of like getting people if you're able to do that. On webinars now, we're kind of modeling that as well, where you do the webinar the first day, and then the last day before cart closes, coming back with a very emotional sales video to pitch them on the the logical side of it, to push the last group of people over the edge. Okay, all right, and I think that those are the core things I want to talk about. Obviously, there's so many more nuances about this whole thing. We could spend, I've done 3-day events teaching this stuff. The book's all about it. Like how do you craft the headline to deal with this? How do you craft the headlines for each of these things? And we don't have the time and the energy right now to do all of that. So go deeper into the book. It'll explain those things. But this is the framework of how it works, okay? Understanding origin story, price marinade, secret 1, secret 2, secret 3, vehicle, internal, external, how it matches to the offer, the stack slide, moving them through stack slide, if all statements, and then we close it from there. Those are the keys, okay? All right, so that's kind of the game plan. So we're gonna take a break right now. We'll take a little bit longer this break this time. I'm gonna get something to eat really quick because I know the next section is gonna be 3 or 4 hours long. And then when we come back, what we're gonna do is, like I said, we're literally gonna take the 10X presentation, we're gonna push play. I'm gonna talk about it, I'll pause, and be like, okay, this is why I did this, and this is why we did this. I'm gonna push play again and pause, we'll go back and forth. It'll be a lot of fun. I know there's gonna be a lot of nuances that we didn't cover here that'll be brought deeper there. That's why I didn't go too deep into some of like how I do the stories. So I wanna actually show you right when we did it. And I didn't talk about where I do the trial close. I'm gonna show you where I did it and why I did it. And so it's gonna be awesome. I'm so excited, I've never done this before. The closest thing I've ever done this, we did an event a little while ago where I brought in about 100 people into a room, and I did a webinar live where actually I made everyone be quiet. I clicked play. I can't remember how many people had on. I did the webinar live, and I think I did like $40,000 or $50,000 in sales while everyone was there watching. And then it ended, and then it was crazy. Everyone was clapping like crazy. And then I went back through and I kind of dissected it afterwards. But it's always different than like, oh yeah, because you forget why you did what you did. And so I'll pause it and explain why I did each of the pieces. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and I cannot wait. Hopefully, that's the core, most important thing I want to share with you guys during this presentation. So thank you guys again for hanging out. Hopefully this helps give you some context of the perfect webinar. So now as we dig deep, you'll be able to see where all the pieces plug in and why I did what I did. So we'll see you guys here in, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. Thanks everybody.